You know, I can mess with a man too.
You what?
Milk on your face. Milk on your face.
All my super happy Christmas energy is gone. So firstly, I love To Your Eternity. Basically, To Your Eternity for me personally is one of my favorite series right now. I'm for the most part extremely caught up the vast majority of this season. A couple things that's wrong for me is this is not something that most people can watch genuinely and, you know, understand a lot of the folklore and general parts of the story. Now, I haven't done reviews or storyline, anything on my main channel because this is one of my bigger projects I'll do later in the future, because I got to do in detailed, you know, in person, you know, my D3200 before I even go on a whole rant and everything. And again, hey, this is DoctorDead, your favorite man, and anime and horror extraordinaire. Today we'll be talking about To Your Eternity and how much I love season 2. If you haven't seen To Your Eternity at all, you're sleeping under a rock. It is Paranoia Agent fused with FLCL, fused with Full Alchemist, fused with just like 1,000 different shows. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. I haven't watched a show like this in a long time. The concept to me comes off as original. The dub is well, not always, but for me, consistent. A lot of the characters from Fushi to March to Perona to Hayase to Gugu to Pioran to, I'm mad they call the old man Booze Man. I'm mad they call him Booze Man, but whatever. To Nari, Kohaku, who's kind of, you know, being kind of with Fushi right now because he's like, oh, you can be my, you know, I can mess with a man too.
You what?
Milk on your face. Milk on your face.
Basically, Fushi is a god that had to go through trials and tribulations. Some of the characters I mentioned, like March, Perona, Gugu, for instance, Pioran, who is like his mother or figure, so to speak. She is literally basically Fushi is somebody that has lost a lot of people, and to become, from my understanding of the show, it's really a god that is absorbing information and information and information and information and everything from the sea to the water to from the sea to the earth to the sky to the general populace around the world. He absorbs it, eats everything, and learns everything at a faster pace than a general person. I believe the end of part 1, or not the end of part 1 per se, but the end of the beginning of the first season of anime, it's like the first 40 years. Fushi's an immortal being sent to Earth, no emotions, no identity whatsoever, and the core, as in the spirit himself. And, you know, they call him the Black One, but I'm jokingly going to call him God, and, you know, Fushi is basically his prophet, or Jesus, so to speak, and he sends his spears, or his forms of Jesus, as his messengers on Earth. They basically become, well, like I said, godly in nature, and they make relationships, good and or bad. You know, Fushi could have been a bad god or a bad immortal being, and, you know, chose to have, you know, kindness in his heart and love others, mainly because of Pioran and Gugu, all the other characters that I mentioned earlier. Anyway, without spoiling too much from season 1, because I'm going to go into that another day. After Pioran dies, Fushi goes through extreme depression. So we basically get about a 50 year time skip, basically. It just continues to spiral off from there. And I'm probably off because there's so many fucking time skips. It's absolutely ridiculous how many time skips they actually have in the series itself, to the point where we even get Hayase, who was one of the original descendants from the family, basically. Well, actually, how should I reword this? Hayase was an assassin that was trying to kill Fushi, and all of her descendants, like Kohaku, which is, I'm gonna save myself time. This right here, this gentleman. So I already seen this episode if you haven't quite got it. Now, Kohaku is one of Hayase's descendants, I believe the 6th one. Because of this, all the descendants want to, like Hayase, breed God's child. They're overly obsessed with it, to the point where we got little girls to young girls, all from the Hayase family bloodline, trying to get Fushi's children, to the point where it's just hard to count with all the time skips from season 2. This is one of the few series I haven't even read the manga on because I don't want to get spoiled. That's how much I love the anime. But he basically gets to a point where Kohaku is so obsessed with Fushi as a character, even wants love to be received by Fushi directly. A man, woman, non-man, non-woman. It's crazy. But basically in this episode, Kohaku, after, you know, Fushi has dealt with centuries of losing people, he wanted to separate himself. The only family that's, you know, kept him company in the last few years is, well, the Hayase's family bloodline, and Kohaku is basically just trying to do what he's been told his entire life. We have characters like Prince Spawn, who I like because he's like Kuwabara. he's very spiritually aware, but he has his own flaws in particular. His main flaw to me really is his obsession to be king, basically at the cost of, you know, losing friends, losing family. There's even this big gal, this big girl who is obsessed with him and loves him. He can't even tell it's a girl or not. Almost died for him even at one point. So a lot of the characters are using Fushi to some degree, whether it be in Prince Bond's case for royalty, and for Kohaku's case it's love and continuing the family line, and that's the destiny of the Hase family bloodline. They all want to continue, or at least become. It's kind of gotten to a point now where majority of the main cast understands Fushi's abilities. You know, in part 1 you don't really see that. Fushi ends up bringing a young woman back to life, doing so at the cost of literally losing his freedom, so to speak. Now, this church is overly obsessed with proving that he's Satan, because any human or being that is abnormal must be satanic in nature. It can't be, you know, godly in any context. So it's very interesting to me that, you know, despite them being royal and, you know, the time that they're in right now, I mean, obviously religion runs everything, but their version of their holy see literally just manipulated the whole situation in this episode, kind of flipped the nail on his head, and Fushi ends up getting, well, I'll just skim it for you. He tried to free himself with Gugu's abilities and Tanari and other family members that for him and their family, because they died, and every person that's died within Fushi's spear or his core, especially those that he cares for, he ends up almost eating their souls, is how I would love to describe it. I know it's not exactly that. He gets literally burned with magma or lava here relentlessly to the point where he awakens. It's kind of crazy. To eternity, pretty much the bigger picture to a lot of this is Fushi literally just trying to find some true meaning to life. Like, you imagine if, you know, you're a mortal human being and you live over thousands of years. At some point, you're gonna get tired of having friends. You're gonna get tired of being around family, tired of being around associates. You get at a certain point where you see life, you see financial problems, you see illness, everything still leads to death. So you're seeing your friends and your family, your loved one, they all die, and you're the only one that survives much. So you have to find meaning. And this is a character that unfortunately is incapable of separating himself from it. This episode was accumulation of a lot of things that was going on. We got Fushi breaking from his 40 years of depression, you know, to finally be around people that unfortunately then die. So he's like, okay, well, let me just go back to being, you know, lonely and hiding myself. We got Kohaku and Prince Bond trying to tell him the opposite, and it just unfortunately just does not work in the way that he wanted to. I'm expecting, honestly, towards the end of this series, a lot more, I wouldn't say more violent, but a lot more transparency from him. He's going to have to be a lot more aggressive, and I think once he figures out his abilities in detail, keywords here, in detail, I think he will further evolve as a god. But what do you think? Do you like To Your Eternity? Firstly, To Your Eternity is, again, one of my, you know, favorite series. You should fucking watch this. Fucking watch this shit. The author, trying to remember her name, Yoshitoki Oima, she's actually very good. This has been going on since November 9th, 2016. There's about 18 volumes so far. Cumulatively, there's 32 episodes, so you have a lot. Actually, no, I lied. There's cumulatively 26 right now, so you'll enjoy it. I think a lot of people would enjoy it, especially that like series like this, so definitely go and check it out and check it out.